Hey guys, it's Jonathan with Sandhills Promise, and this is going to be our fourth video in our Sandhills Promise 101 video series where we have been going over how to fill out the different Sandhills Promise applications. We started with the Sandhills Promise application. That was our first video. Second video was the Residency Determination Application, or RDS. Our third video was the admissions application, and our fourth video is going to be all about your FAFSA. And we're actually going to split this up into two videos. We're going to have video 4, and then the fifth video is also going to cover FAFSA information. The FAFSA is just we cover so much ground that we're going to split this up into two separate videos. In this video, part 1, it's going to be commonly asked questions that I've gotten over the years from Sandhills Promise students, and then we're going to cover how to fill out your FSA, your ID. And in our second video, we're going to get into the FAFSA itself. So we're going to start with some commonly asked questions that I have gotten over the years from our Sandhills Promise students. The first one that we get asked all the time is, if I'm eligible for Sandhills Promise, why do I need to complete a FAFSA application? That's a great question. The Promise program covers your tuition for 2 years immediately following high school graduation. It's a tuition-only program, does not cover books. And so you're probably thinking, all right, I've taken 4 more CCP courses. I've got the 2.0 or higher GPA. I've got the 67% or higher completion rate. Why do I need to fill out a FAFSA if the Promise is going to pay my tuition? The Promise is designed to only pay tuition after all other forms of financial aid have been exhausted. So, for example, when you fill out your FAFSA, it lets us know, and you, if you're eligible for any federal or state grants. If you are eligible, those pay first. Promise would pay second. If you have any outside scholarships, or if you get any internal Sandhills scholarships, again, those pay first. Promise pays second. So again, Promise pays the tuition for 2 years immediately following your high school graduation, and it only pays if you are not eligible for any other forms of financial aid. And we find that out by you completing the FAFSA application. The next question that we get asked all the time is, what is an FSA ID? And do I need an FSA ID for my parents? So the FSA ID is your FAFSA username and password. Just like everything else that you have these days, you got to have a username and password. But the FSA ID is unique because it's not just your username and password that you're going to create to sign into the FAFSA application. It is also your electronic signature for the FAFSA. And yes, the second part of this question, you do need an FSA ID for your parents. And we're going to touch on that in more detail in just a second. And that leads us, talking about your parents, it leads us to our next question that we get asked a lot. Will I need my parents' information on the FAFSA, and why? So yes, you are definitely going to need your parents' information on the FAFSA. The reason is the Department of Education says if you are under the age of 24, if you are not married, if you do not have children that you support more than 50%, or if you are not in the United States military, then you are considered a dependent student and have to put your parents' information on the application. What information will you need to get from them? Well, just like if you watched our RDS and admissions application videos, you will need their social security numbers, their dates of birth. If your parents are married, you'll need their anniversary, the month and year that they got married. You'll need their 2018 tax returns, and there are some more financial information that you'll need from them as well. We recommend, just like in the RDS and the admissions application videos, we recommend don't do this application by yourself. Have your parents with you. It is so much easier when they're there and can go ahead and give you all the information instead of you having to piecemeal it together or go back and log back in several times to enter everything in. Some other commonly asked questions is, what if I'm not eligible for federal or state aid? And that goes back to the very first question. Why do I have to do a FAFSA? If you're not eligible for federal or state aid, if you meet promise criteria, we're going to pay. We're going to pay your tuition for the 2 years immediately following your high school graduation, beginning that first fall semester after you graduate. Next question says, how long does it take the FAFSA to be received by Sandhills? 3 to 5 business days is the typical time. This is very important to remember if you fill this application out in the summertime, especially if you wait until the day before our priority deadline, which is July 9th. So if you wait until July 8th at 10 o'clock at night to fill out the FAFSA application for Sandhills Promise, it is not going to be received by Sandhills immediately. It will take up to 3 to 5 business days to be received. It is processed by the Department of Education first, and then they send it to us for processing. Next question is, what if I have a special circumstance or if I do not live with my parents? Call me. At the end of this presentation, I'll have my phone number and email. That's on our website. Any time you get into the FAFSA and you feel like there's a special circumstance in terms of finances, if you feel like if you don't live with your parents, we do have what we call a dependency override that we can give you the information with and to help you through. There is a lot of paperwork that goes with that dependency override because we're trying to prove that not only do you not live with your parents, but there is no way possible you can get their information for the FAFSA. Again, give me a call. Let me walk you through the different scenarios. It is a lot easier to talk it through before you fill out the FAFSA instead of having to go back in and make correction after correction. And then finally, you will be asked later when you're filling out the application to enter in. You can enter in up to 10 schools, and it is so easy just to, yes, I know my school code, and ours is 002961. It will go ahead and pull Sandhills up so you don't have to search by the city and state and hopefully have everything correct. Now we're going to jump right into the FAFSA itself. And you've noticed in big, bold red letters at the top, it says www.fafsa.gov. I want to emphasize that you go to .gov. If you go to FAFSA.com, FAFSA.net, FAFSA.org, anything other than .gov. I know for a fact that FAFSA.com charges $79.95. It is a legitimate website, but they charge you to fill out the FAFSA through all their helpful tips and tricks and pointers that they try to give you. This is the free application for federal student aid. I'm going to highlight it here. Free application for federal student aid. If you are on a website that is trying to charge you, you are not in the right place. This is a free application, and you go to FAFSA.gov. Returning users, you have a login area. If you're new to the process, you're going to click here. Even if you're a returning user, let's say you started this application with your high school counselor, you could log in here. Once you have selected a returning user or a brand new user, this is the screen that it's going to take you to. And my arrow just bounced in, and that is highlighting that you now need to create that FSA ID that we were talking about in the beginning of this presentation. If you've never set up an FSA ID with yourself or your guidance counselor at your high school, you're going to click on Create One. That's the first step you need to do. If you don't, a lot of students try to put in a CFNC username and password or what they think. Just go straight here and click on Create User ID and Password. If you've got one, if you've already got a username and password and you don't remember it, I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about the different steps you can take to reset that. But you can click here on Forgot Username and Forgot Password, and it will walk you through the steps to try to recover all of that. Okay, so you've clicked on Create an FSA ID, it's very important to read this very first section. It says, because financial aid agreements are legally binding, you can't create an account for someone else, even another family member. Parents and students must create their own accounts. A user can only have one account associated with his or her social security number. A lot of times students get this wonderful idea that I'll go ahead and create one for myself and my parents. I'll use the same email address. No, the Department of Education, this application is so sensitive. You've got to use different email addresses. Make sure all the socials are correct, because these are unique FAFSA username and passwords, and it's a unique signature for both you and your parents when you sign the FAFSA. So that's why it's so important to make sure that as we go through these next steps, that you're checking, rechecking, and double checking, and both accounts, for you and your parents, are standalone with no issue. Okay, so now it is time to set up your username and password for your FSA ID. The very first thing that you're going to come to is you're going to have to create a username. Don't be surprised if you have to put in a couple different usernames. You are competing, so to speak, with people from across the country. So you'll put that unique username that you create, and it'll tell you if it's available. Your email address, please, please, please do not use your Hope County or Moore County school email address. Those email addresses, after 30, 45 days, I think, I forget the exact period, but those go away. So you want to make sure that you're putting a permanent email address here. And I'll get to that, why that's so important, here in just a second. I'm going to ask you to confirm your email address. You're going to create a password. Has to have an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a minimum of 8 characters. And then you're going to confirm the password right there. Now, I wish after this screen I could show you more of the FSA ID process. Unfortunately, unless I put my personal information in there, I cannot. So I'm just going to have to walk you through some general steps. The next screen you come to is going to ask for your social security number, your date of birth, address. It's very important. Make sure you put the correct social. Make sure you put the correct date of birth in there. If you put the wrong one, it can take a lot of time to fix that. You may have to call the folks at the Department of Education. So we cannot fix it at the college. It's not a quick fix on your end either. So make sure those are correct. The next things you'll come to is it's going to ask you to put in your cell phone number. Some folks are a little leery of doing that. I can promise you, you're not going to get text messages from the Department of Education soliciting business or anything like that. What this does, if you put in your cell number and you ever forget the username and your password, you can have a secure code sent to your cell, and you can reset the password or retrieve your username. Same with the email address. You're going to be asked at the very end to confirm or verify your email address, and they'll send you a secure code to that email. Make sure you are on a tablet, computer, or cell phone that you can easily get to that email address while you're doing the FAFSA, and you'll put in that secure code, and it will verify the email address. It'll also do that at the very end for the cell phone as well. What's important about those is not only can you use your email address or cell phone number to retrieve your username and reset your password, you can sign in with your email address in place of your username if you forget that. So very important. It's also going to ask you when you are setting up the FSA ID before it's done to set up challenge questions. So if your email address changes, if you change cell numbers, you can always use your challenge questions. Make sure you pick challenge questions that are easy. Make sure you write them down and keep them in a secure location, the same place your username and password is kept, because it is can be difficult to reset those as well if you don't remember the username and password. All right, well, I hope you found the commonly asked questions and the information on the FSA ID helpful. I have put on this slide some helpful YouTube videos that the Department of Education has done. The first one, how to create your FSA ID, is a great one. It's about 3 minutes, I believe. And because they're the Department of Education, they actually walk you through screen by screen and step by step on how to fill that FSA ID out. So they go over the exact same things that I did, but just you get, if you're a visual person like I am, you get to see the example of an FSA ID worked out. So that is a great video to check out. And so is the second one, and it covers some the FAFSA and FSA ID tips for parents. All right. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you on video 5, where we jump into more FAFSA information.